It's not always that we get to start an episode with a bunch of good news like today. To begin with, there's Mohammedan Sporting who won the I-League qualifiers and they're back in the I-League after 6 years. It's always good to have a popular club from Kolkata in the I-League because the previous seasons have been largely carried by the Kolkata Derby, and this time both East Bengal and Mohun Bagan are in the ISL. On top of that, the I-League is being held in Kolkata as its central venue, so it's important to have a club from Kolkata over there, even though we don't have fans attending the event. But still, you want a lot of buzz in local media when a event like this is happening, and having a local club is always helpful with that, and that has a knock-on effect on the national media. So in terms of ratings, in terms of popularity, in terms of interest, in terms of media coverage, Mohammedan Sporting being there is always a plus point for I-League. And I have to say that even though East Bengal and Mohun Bagan are not there, it's not looking that bad for I-League. We've got a bunch of clubs who are super serious about being competitive for the title because they want that place in AFC Cup. There's Churchill Brothers, there's Gokulam Kerala FC, Mohammedan Sporting also are looking good. And Sudeva might become a dark horse this season. Who knows, maybe Aizawl FC are gonna make a comeback. And we've already had good performances from Trau and Neroka in the past. You take away two of the top clubs of a league and it immediately becomes a contender season, and whoever wins the I-League, it's going to be a major boost in their profile. If whether they have dreams of playing in the ISL in the future or not, it's always great to be one of the clubs representing India in the AFC Cup. So make no mistake, this is going to be one very important competition in the Indian football calendar this season. More good news, on 20th November, the Indian Super League will finally get underway, and to be honest, the announcement was a relief because in recent days we've seen speculation that the start of ISL might be delayed because so many foreign players and coaches are facing complications traveling to India. But it's good that AFSDL and AIFF have put their foot down and said this is when we start. We've got a good buzz going around Indian football. It's a big prestigious moment for AIFF that they managed to pull off the first major domestic tournament on Indian soil after COVID-19 hit. They want to become the only professional sport in the country whose national level competitions were not affected by the pandemic. And if they do pull it off, if I-League and ISL go off without a hitch, you can imagine the amount of media coverage and fan interest that's going to bring to Indian football. And I have to say, with the addition of East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, this ISL is going to be the most competitive and most interesting ISL ever. And it's not just the new contenders that are going to make it interesting. It's going to be about how the bubble is going to work, whether everybody is going to stay safe throughout the season or not, whether or not these team hotel atmospheres are going to have an effect on the team's performances, and whether preparation time is going to seriously affect a team's performance also, because not everybody is starting at the same time, not everybody is arriving at the same time, and not everybody is going to accumulate to this new condition the same way. So there's a lot to look forward to, a lot to be anxious about, and a lot to be hopeful about as well. Because as far as we know, the I-League qualifiers bio bubble has worked pretty well. Although there was that incident with Kroma attending Bhavanipore's practice despite having tested COVID-19 positive a few days ago. Overall, there was no case of bubble failure, which is when some player enters the bubble after testing COVID negative and afterwards tests positive. That would indicate a serious breach in the bubble's safety, and that can bring a competition to a halt. Because when you hear a news that some player or some coach who was about to go into the bubble has tested positive for COVID-19, that's a bad news for the team, but not necessarily for the league, because it basically shows that the precautionary measures taken by the organizers are working. The cases of COVID-19 are getting detected before the players are entering the bubble. So that tells us that the bubble is going to be secure. The players and staff who are already inside the bubble are going to be secure, and that's very important for the competition to carry on without a hitch. Speaking of that, another point we talked about in the previous episode was whether or not COVID-19 is going to be a factor that's akin to injuries. As we said earlier, Kroma tested positive. Bengaluru United also lost players because of COVID-19. And I-League qualifiers was a pretty short tournament, so if a player tests positive once, they are pretty much missing out on the entire competition. In fact, Bengaluru United makes for a pretty interesting case study of a team that's possibly struggling a bit under these conditions. They had to travel to a new city. There was an adjustment factor. They had players missing due to COVID 19. And in the end, despite being one of the favorites in the tournament, they ended up having a pretty underwhelming campaign. Compare that with Mohammedan Sporting, who started the training a lot earlier. In fact, the officials went and lobbied the state government to give them permission to do the practice sessions. Bhawanipore were also playing in their own city, so they had an easier time adjusting. So these are real human factors that are going to play into a team's performance. So if you're trying to predict how an ISL team is going to perform, at least in the initial rounds of the league, maybe how long the players and coaches have been in the bubble and how long they have been regularly practicing, that's going to play a part. And talking about playing a part, Anwar Ali has been fighting so hard to get a permission to carry on with his football career in this country. And there's a reason this podcast did not discuss his issue before. And in fact, we're not going to go into that much detail today either. We want to wait for the final decision to arrive. What has happened so far is that a heart issue was detected, and from what we understand, there were conflicting opinions and conflicting regulations also. So, under the medical codes of different associations, Anwar Ali would actually be free to play in certain countries, and in certain countries, he would not be allowed to play, as was the case in India. AIFF said he should not play and tried to convince him to take up a career in coaching. He didn't want to, and it was completely heartbreaking. Here's a guy who's about to make it. He's already played in a high profile tournament for the junior national team, and he is dreaming that he's going to make it as a player. He's going to be famous all around. Everybody around him is also telling him that he's one of the biggest talents in the country, and then something like this happens. And of course, you want to hope the best for him. And of course, you want him to achieve his dreams. But in the end, those of us who are not medical experts and cannot speak with authority on what has happened, we perhaps should not be speculating on this. As things stand now, the High Court has allowed him to carry on playing until AIFF makes a final decision, and best of luck to him, to be honest. He's been going through some nightmarish months recently, much worse than most of us have had. So, good news for him. I hope it brings him a lot of relief and he gets to pursue his dreams. And talking about pursuing dreams, notice the smooth segue. The special guest in this episode is somebody you know if you have been following the Indian football family online. This is Debanjan, aka Joey, aka Footy Traveller. He's been traveling all around the world, watching football matches, documenting football cultures, and sharing his experiences. He's been following the Indian national team around as much as possible, and he's also a well known figure among the fan movements in Indian football. The man is pursuing his dreams, and we caught up as fellow fans to talk about his experience watching and covering football, how the sport has shaped him, and how he sees the Indian football fan movements, the fan cultures, and the sport itself changing in the coming years. It's part gossip, part nostalgia, part socio-economic theory. So enjoy the conversation.
I think if I had to categorize my involvement into football, that would be because of three reasons. One is, of course, the sport itself, and two is because of my, my connection to the refugee culture, and three is because of my maternal grandfather. So the sport itself just happens to everybody. And when it came to actually supporting a club, the first thing that I actually really noticed that I should support East Bengal was actually from my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. He was never really a pronounced East Bengal fan, but he always used to watch East Bengal on TV when he was working in his shop in South Kolkata. He has like a musical instrument shop, and whenever he was working on his instruments, he used to have one, his ears on the TV, and whenever East Bengal scored, he used to just look up from his work and look at East Bengal play for a while and see the goal and then get back to working. But his ears was always on the TV. And the third thing is like, despite, my maternal grandfather being the only person in the family who was connected to sport, even my paternal grandfather and paternal grandmother, even though they were from Bangladesh, they never really had any sort of connection to East Bengal club per se. But they used to tell me stories about the struggles of crossing the border in 1947 and how they had to struggle, like walk for miles and miles, and with the entire family, and that really sort of resonated with me. And apart from that, I think, like the fact that I started supporting underdogs as a kid, not only just East Bengal, which has that history of struggle, and also, my support for West Bromwich Albion, which is a very small club in the UK, which no one really talks about. My connection to them, I've searched a long, long time, and at this age where I really look back and I understand psychology, I understand behavior a lot more. I can actually connect it back to the fact that I had a really struggle. I used to have a rough childhood in the sense that I was sort of a rebel kid. I used to be always in trouble in school. Get into fights. Arguments. My parents were called every few days, and like I was always on the edge at school, even though I was really good in studies. So I think that was a big influence in me, where I used to feel the need to support something which connects to me. So even the kind of music that I used to listen to was, music about struggle and war. Like I don't know if you know about Fort Minor and Limp Bizkit and all of these bands, which hip hop bands which used to listen to while we grew up, and they really spoke about a lot of their personal struggles through the music, and so these were the stuff which really sort of shaped my childhood. I think struggle, and that's really I sort of connected to even Indian football. Like I never remember a time where Indian football really made me happy. I was always, pissed off, but there was some sort of joy in being pissed off all the time about Indian football. And the fact that I wanted to change it, at some point of time, it really kept me going. Um, so at different points of time, I think I have had different affiliations to football. When I was growing up as a kid, it was more like playing the sport, and then when I transitioned into, obviously, I was not good enough to, I was good enough to be in the school team, but that's about it. But not really. I played also in the college team, but not really about, anything further than that.
Mm.
And then, I wanted to study sport, and that somehow did not happen. And, like at that point of time, sports management was not really a thing which was very coveted, in the sense it was still a very unstable um, line to choose, and my parents were not really up for it, and it was also expensive to go abroad and study the sport, so I never really got a chance to do it. But I ended up studying economics, and I did my master's in economics, and like I've always had that the wish to somehow connect sport or football to everything that I do, and I had the perfect opportunity to do it in my master's thesis, where I conducted this massive study on Indian football. The actual ISL model was is something which I researched on earlier in 2011. I did my master's thesis on what actually became the ISL model today. So, like it was, I conducted a survey of about 1,000 to 1,500 people all over India. And, I asked them questions about identity, about affiliations, and, you know, uh, the clubs they support, and whether they would buy merchandise, and whether the reasons they support a particular team. And it was very, I would say, self-satisfying, not only self-satisfying, but also very, good research, in the sense I really got good marks in it also. But, at the end of the day, it was something which I, did to satisfy my love for sport and connect it to economics. Otherwise, I never really had any interest in economics as such. And once I got it to work, I really sort of, the fact that you had to work, and in India, it's like it's like everything is laid down for you, in the sense that you go to college, you finish your masters, you start a job, you get married, and you have kids, and then you die. So it's it's these sort of things which are laid down for you, and that, I mean, at that point of time, I was too young to sort of judge what was outside the box. So I really chose what I had to choose, and I started working. And I joined the analytics industry, and somehow, for some reason, I really started liking it. And football took a bit of a backseat for a while. For example, I would still watch matches and I used to go to play, but like I was never really into the game as such. I would go for the odd East Bengal game when East Bengal played at Bangalore FC. But I moved to Bangalore, So, but the thing is that like I never really was into football, and of course I used to keep watching West Bromwich Albion play at the same time. But my connection with football had become sort of a little weak and taken like a backseat for at least like 4 or 5 years. And till I decided that like I want to go and watch West Bromwich Albion play for the first time ever. Like I'd been like a satellite fan since I can remember 2003 season, 2003 season, and so after like almost 13 years of being a satellite fan, I actually decided to make a decision to go and watch West Bromwich Albion play. And I think that this decision was sort of derived from the fact that I had been having a very you know mundane lifestyle where I used to go to work and come back home, spend all the money that I earned, which is quite good. And then one fine day while playing football, I tore my ligament, and
Mm.
I was so like for me like if it's for a player, tearing a ligament is a big thing because they know that their career is going to be jeopardized. But for me, like the ability that I will not be able to play anymore, that I won't be able to play football anymore, is something which sets my mind free. Just the act of playing on a Friday, really shook me, and I really, 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 took everything into consideration. I was like, I have to change my life around. I cannot be that. I had a lot of, I was really fat at that point of time. I was really unfit, and yeah, I had to change my life around. And that one entire year, I was lucky. I was allowed to work from home, and I really, inculcated habits, not only just of watching football. I mean, not only just of staying fit, but also of like trying to tick off whatever I really wanted to do in life one by one. And one of them
Mm.
was watching West Bromwich Albion play. I think another very weird incident happened at that point of time, which really moved me. Was I almost died in the swimming pool while doing my rehab. So, a part of the rehab exercises while working out was that, you have to do a lot of underground water therapy to, increase your chances of recovery. And I did that. But, one fine day, I just thought that, I'm just going to try and do it by myself in the deeper side of the pool. And the thing is, I don't know how to swim. So I lost control and I panicked and I was inside the water. Apparently, they had to take me out and um, you know, put mouth to mouth to revive me. I mean, this something which I don't remember, of course, because that part of my life
Mm.
I really don't remember. Those 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, it's like complete blank. But like that sort of after I walked out of that place, and I was like, man, anybody can die anytime because of any cause. There is no fixed time. So I really started to look at life from a different perspective after that, and I really wanted to. And also at that point of time, I also started traveling. Just before that, I think so. I had before I joined. So I was working with Accenture at that point of time. But before I joined Accenture, I had been on my first solo trip, and that was not for
Mm.
football, but it was just just to travel. Just I was out of a very bad relationship, and I wanted to do something else. And so I just set out on by myself after I quit my job, and between two jobs I traveled for around 20 days all over India. I was never really settled anymore. Like like once you start
Mm.
traveling by yourself and you see the world, and you meet people, and you start to realize that how different everything is from the comfort of your four walls, and you're not at home, just not at home, but also at office. Your perspective about life changes, and there were many things which really contributed to this turnaround from me being a person who probably wanted to chase promotion, like wanted to be a manager or maybe like a CEO or something, to
Mm.
someone who just wanted to be happy with what he was doing. And because at the end of the day, like what I was doing at work was extremely well paying, but it wasn't, I wasn't really satisfied, in the sense that there was no real, spark inside for me, which told me that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I couldn't see myself doing it. And then like when I joined Accenture, I had this this I worked for 1 year in Bangalore, and then I was like really frustrated because I already traveled by then, and then I recovered from my ACL injury. I was fitter, and and then I was like, I need to go abroad, and I need to fulfill my dream of watching West Bromwich Albion play, and that happened. I traveled alone for the second time, and made this amazing journey to watch West Brom play, and not just West Brom. I watched so many other clubs. Walsall, for a matter of fact, West Brom, Cardiff City, Manchester United, uh, uh, Celtic, Rangers, uh, Sunderland away at West Brom away at Sunderland, and yeah, so many of these games. And the thing is, and the way the whole thing went about was it was quite unexpected in the sense that there was a blog which I had written, and one this lady called Gurdial Singh, she had sort of found the blog on the internet, and it went viral in West Brom circles. And then suddenly, the club was contacting me, and they were like, you must come to the club. How come we never knew about you and everything? And so I went to the club. I met all the players. I met all the legends, and I met everybody else which I possibly thought I would never meet, because my plan was just to go and watch a game and come back, and do whatever else I was planning to do at West Brom. So it was just something which I never thought would materialize, but it was beyond my expectations. That sort of set like a new level of high for me. And there was, just imagine the fact that you can, for 13 years in your life, you've been the only person in India who's been watching a club hold up in his room, and no one really knows about you, and except for your close circle friends. And then suddenly you're in the mix where you're with 20,000 people singing the songs that you hear from TV. So that really had like a very profound impact on me. And not just that, I was able to write for the West Bromwich Albion website about my experience, which is again the Premier League covered me. There were multiple other people in the UK which covered me. So so it was a great exposure for me as a football fan, and then and also the fact that I got to see so many other fan groups around on the world, and in England, and then there's something which I really you know noticed, that like we have all this back home as well, know and like we have people going to the games for 30 years in a row. We have people going to games week in, week out. We have this sort of fanaticism too. Like at Celtic, I saw the Celtic Ultras, and Rangers also, but I never knew what Ultras was then. I never knew what hooligans. I never knew what casuals was back then. But I just knew that these were fanatical fans, and they were amazing to be close to, because they just create a different sort of vibe, which makes it really amazing to watch football. So that was the my first introduction with fan culture. To be honest, I might have gone for a few games at Bangalore, but in that period when East Bengal played, but I was it wasn't really that sort of. I don't remember any instance being profoundly influenced by it. Maybe I didn't notice because I was not exposed to it earlier. But yeah, at that point of time after the UK, I really thought about this, and on the way back, I, I really thought that like it's time to take my whatever I've seen to a different level. And I have this habit of, if I like something, I go down the rabbit hole with it. Like I really go deep into it. Like there's nothing which can leave me to know something at the superficial level. And it's only if I like something. If I don't like it, I don't even touch it. So this was the thing with me. And then when once I came back, I think I remember the first match that I went to was India versus Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, so that was my first time vlogging in Indian football, and I really liked that experience. West Block was really fantastic, and they did a very good job that day. and they were quite friendly back then. I was quite happy to walk in with my East Bengal scarf, and there were few eyes here and there looking at me, and few people saying shit, but like I didn't care. It's the country which is playing, and it doesn't matter what scarf I'm carrying. So that was my first. Of course, I've been to many India games before, like when India played Japan and India played Korea, and all of this playing in Salt Lake in Calcutta. But that was the first time I was, my first early memory as someone who wanted to observe what was happening. So yeah, so that was the first thing, and then from then when I came back, I went to my first outing. So I haven't released that vlog yet, which I want to. Like I have like 3 years worth of footage which I haven't really released, and I need to, you know, up my publishing schedule. But yeah, slowly, I'm beginning to post stuff from the past, which were quite interesting back then and even now. For example, in the second one, which I plan to do soon, is that the journey we made from Siliguri to from Calcutta to Siliguri for the derby, and it was so much fun just to reach the stadium because I don't know if many people know it was like a like a what do you say, rekindling of childhood memories, not because of football, but because of the bus that you traveled in. The rocket bus, the most disgusting piece of train you can ever look to place yourself on, but like is the most hilarious thing ever. Like I have never had a much more funnier journey in my life. There were people stopping the bus every 5 minutes to take a pee break, and then the bus left without them, and they came back and just abused the shit out of the bus driver. It was so far, so much fun. As I've never seen anything like that in my life. I mean, I remember going on it when I was young with my family, but like, to relive that again in 2016 was amazing. And I sort of documented that entire journey from Siliguri to Calcutta, and then the Calcutta Derby, where, I met East Bengal Ultras and my friends from Football Fans Asia, Toby. So that was the start of my connection with Toby. And Toby has been like a profound, from Football Fans Asia, he's been a profound influence in my life in whatever I've done as a football um, fan journalist. So he's a supporter of Borussia Dortmund, and he and one more guy called Daniel, both of them started this channel called Football Fans Asia, which covers a lot of Indonesian and Malaysian football. And that's how I really got into Indonesian and Malaysian football. And so all of these events, they led up to me. I think after the East Bengal game, the next one that I went to was to Thailand, in and I watched Muangthong United, and that was also like another eye-opening experience for me. Muangthong was like I not just in terms of the fan culture, but also in terms of how efficient a club can be to attract uh, the locality, in the sense that Muangthong looks better than Manchester. When you enter the stadium premises, everything is so perfect in terms of merchandising, in terms of ticketing, in terms of things to do outside the stadium, and in terms of atmosphere, in terms of kids play areas, women's play, women's uh, stuff women can do at the stadium. Like if you're not a part of football, like if your husband and your son watches football, if you want to bring your mother too, your mother has something to do there. You know, it's like that, and and of course, like Thai football has a lot of women who take part in football activities on a regular basis. Like it's almost like 50-50, if you can say, the number of men and women in the stadium. But apart from that, I'm sure there are a lot of other women and other men who don't like football, but their children or their spouses or husbands might be, want to watch football. So they have something to do there as well. Like it's like a family outing where everyone has something to do on a Saturday weekend, on a Saturday or a Sunday on a weekend. So that for me was a very big eye opener, and that's when I started to question, and that's where my rebel spirit started to get rekindled, in the sense that that if they can do it, why can't we not do it? And and Newton has a capacity of maybe 15,000, and that 15,000 felt like I was inside a 40,000 seater stadium. It was full, it was close, it was small, but it was amazing. So these are the kind of things which I got exposed to, and I really started to you know um, what do you say uh, compare with Indian football, and that's where I felt uneasy, and I felt we are not doing enough, we are not doing enough, we can do a lot more. So, that's where it started. And after Thailand and after I came back, I I think I really wanted to go out of the country, because first of all, I was looking for a job with Accenture outside India, and yeah, I got my residence permit in Sweden and everything, but for some reason, I got my visa and everything. The project got cancelled, and then, you know, I was really disappointed, and I didn't know. Then the next thing they told me to do was go to Kengere. So Kengere is like it's like 2 hours away from Bangalore, and it's and it's over 1.5 hours in Bangalore traffic. And the thing was, you cannot work from home, so you have to work from the office because it's like a secure being system. So I was like,
Yeah.
sending me to Sweden for on-site, you're sending me to Kengari for on-site. That's not going to happen. So then I quit, and yeah, I quit saying that like either you know let me give me something which I want to do, or or I leave, and I left. And I don't know if I made that decision out of impulse, but to look back today, I've never really regretted that decision in my life till now. Of course, things have been not as easy as they were in terms of materialistic terms when I was in working with Accenture. Of course, the money was very good, but here, like I was just thrown into the world without any regular source of income.
Mm.
So it was different for me, but thankfully I made some savings, and that I got like a payout once I left Accent. So that's when I made my first trip to Southeast Asia. I mean, first trip to sorry Indonesia, and with that money, and I went to Indonesia. The first stadium I actually went to was Jakarta, and I remember like carrying like I just got off the flight and I had to take like a motorbike for 2 hours, and I had this huge backpack, like at least around 40 kgs on my back, and because that was a trip for almost 1.5 months, 2 months, and that's where I was carrying everything on my back, and I had to get on a motorbike because I can't afford a taxi to the stadium. And Persija was not playing in Garuda Bung Karno. They were playing in a stadium called Bekasi, which is sort of like a different state, but about 2 hours from Jakarta. So different city, but about 2 hours from Jakarta. So I had to get like on a motorbike, and I remember like not being able to sleep on the flight, but like then having to sit on that and entering the Bekasi Stadium with the 40-kilo backpack on my shoulders and walking inside the stadium, and to be greeted by this incredible sea of orange and these faces which spoke of so much passion and so much, and the voices which sounded like everything meant the football meant, and the football and that particular club meant everything to them. And that was a time when I actually stopped and I started crying. It was like this was totally worth it. And the entire trip around Indonesia is exactly what I saw everywhere I went. That passion, that color, and that till then, I was still not very well versed with ultras culture. I was still learning ultras, hooligans, of course, calcios, and all of these subcultures which I knew nothing about. And I just knew them on the top, so on the surface. But like I was slowly learning, and that's how I really, that's when my first exposure to like proper ultras, Carbonat Persija. That was the first proper ultras that I saw. Newtown, maybe you can say Newtown Ultras was the first one, but like Newtown Ultras is much smaller compared to Carbonat Persija. So it was huge, and that was the first time I got real exposure to particular culture with so many
Mm.
fans in one section. So then from there I went to Bandung, and in Bandung, like I had gone to a wrong time when somebody had just died from a football-related incident in Indonesia, and that's where I learned that Indonesian football is extremely violent. And then I started to understand, like for me, uh, and over the years, wherever I went, I came across violence and stuff in Indonesia. But there was some sort of disconnect in my mind that like the people of Indonesia was so amazing. They were so polite, so like welcoming, and they open their houses. They, whatever they have. whatever little they have, even if they're rich or they're poor, they offer everything to you. But then it just did not make sense for me that why do they kill at football, you know? So, and that's how, I really, that's what really pushed me into Indonesian football culture. That like I had to get to the bottom of this, that why is there so much disparity in what happens in real life and what happens inside the stadium or outside the stadium. And that's where I got into psychology, I got into sociology, I got into anthropology, and all of these things which surround football, which we do not understand, from the naked eye. And that was my initial beginning. You can probably say Bandung was the initial beginning where I really, was like, man, how does this work? Like, these people are so amazing. Maybe is it because I'm a foreigner, but like then they also have the just like the rivalries are crazy, their brotherhoods are also crazy. Like, there are people staying in unknown people's houses. Like for example, if Persija playing Arema, the Persija and Arema are friends. 10,000 to 15,000 people travel from Jakarta, which is in the north of Java, to to the east of Java, which is Malang. 10,000 people travel by bus, by road, on trains and flights. Most of them on buses and by road. And then they go and stay in houses of people they never met before for weeks, and they just don't go to watch the match. They just go to have like because Malang it's got a lot of things to see. Like they've got like a lot of mountains and stuff. So they just go there. These people are so welcoming. Oh, you're from Jakarta. You come stay in my house. Like I don't care if I don't know you. So, and even if those are people who are living in slums and stuff like that, so that's what they go for. And it's like they say that away days is the best thing in Indonesia. That's how you make your friends. And the rivalries are also centered around away days. So I mean that's a different podcast altogether. But all of these things, there's some sort of bipolar behavior which I could not really figure out. And for me, I needed to get to the bottom of that, and that's really I started to. Behavior has always been a driving force in my understanding, because understanding of football and also of people and brands, because I worked in analytics. A lot of my work in analytics has been on consumer research. It's been on behavioral economics, behavioral analytics. Where we try to identify why people buy stuff. How much they pay for it. What drives their consumption behavior, and all of that. So, come combine that with you know all of this with football, and I really got into the behavioral side of football. For me, at one point of time, I was trying to use, economics and analytics. I was trying to combine football with my main profession, that was economics and analytics, and then suddenly of that, now it's the tables have turned. It's like football is sort of like my main profession now, and I'm trying to combine economics, behavior, and analytics to football. So yeah, it's and all of this has happened within a span of 5 or 6 years, and yeah, yeah. So after that, after I went to Indonesia and I came back, I've always really sort of struggled with finances, in the sense that we haven't had really steady source of income, for myself, and I'm not getting any younger. But at that end of the day, I know that like it's something which I like, and I'm okay not having things which I don't need. And I started to focus on my spending on whatever I was earning, and spending on things which are actually valuable to me. For example, I started investing in my equipment. For example, when I first went to Indonesia, I shot everything on like on the smartphone that I had, and after that, I started study. Then I came back and I got another contract, analytics contract for like 2 3 months with a older company of mine. And with that money, I bought a camera, you know, and stuff like that. And slowly, I started, and everything was self-learned. Like, um, shooting. I'm not really good at it, but I can do many things. Like I can edit, I can, edit videos, photographs and stuff like that. Write some stuff and all of that. So all these stuff which I'm good at. I mean, I'm not good at, but I can do. Like it's like the I'm like a jack of all trades, sort of a thing. I mean, so yeah, but I realized that I don't really need to be good at all this to make a career out of it. I need to be able to tell a good story. So for me, being able to tell a story is the most important thing to get content which works for you, to get noticed. For example, like you can make the best video in the world, but if it doesn't have a story, it doesn't have anything. And that's why if you see that a lot of these vloggers on YouTube today, uh, their video editing and their content is very basic, but the story that they say is very uh, powerful in the sense that it connects to the common man, and
Mm.
it connects to the aspirations, and it connects to what they want to do, and how they see life. So all of these combined together, like I realized that like being able to tell the story is more important. That's how Footy Traveller started to pick up a bit of pace. And yeah, I won't say that I have not. I have been very focused. I have been very distracted, and procrastinated a lot. That's why I have so much content left from 3 years. But yeah, I think it's not been that difficult because at point of time I tried to do different things as well. I started my own scarf business, which I wanted to make scarves, and you know, the one purpose which with this I wanted to do is like I wanted to develop this culture which created identity in Indian football, and I thought that there's nothing better than making scarves to create that identity. And I had learned this from Southeast Asia, and so I made scarves for almost so many teams. Like I made for East Bengal, I made for Mohun Bagan, I made for Mumbai, I made for Jamshedpur, I made for some European fan clubs. I've made
Mm.
for uh, so many other fan clubs, Goa, Goa Army, and all the other fan clubs in Indian football, Hyderabad. So even though these orders were small, I barely made any money out of it because first of all, it's importing from China and there's a lot of risks involved. I really felt happy that I was able to create that identity across. Like for example, like you would have an Abhishek Bachchan with my scarf without knowing that I made it, which is pretty cool, right? I mean, the fact that Abhishek Bachchan is holding a scarf, it doesn't do me any business because no one knows it's my scarf. But everyone knows that having a scarf is a good way to display your identity, right? So this is the sort of mentality which I want you to drive. The small things about design, about how you design consumer thought process in a way which is beneficial for the movement or for growing that culture. These were things which I focused on a lot. Of course, the scarf business is not really doing well with COVID right now, but still, and then I got an offer to work with Copa 90. For a long time, when I used to do vlogs on Footy Traveller, people used to call me the Sasta Eli Mengle. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but Eli, from Copa 90. Because
Mm.
obviously like I did not have the skills as him, but also because I was like a low budget bootstrapper vlogger. So from there to when I actually got the first call to be able to work with Copa 90, it's just like an incredible feeling because Copa 90 is basically what I do on a very large scale, on a very efficient and proficient scale. And for me
Mm.
to be able to work with them and them telling me that, look, we really like what you do and we want to support what you do, and we want you to do this as much as you can, was is a big motivation and big incentive for me to carry on Footy Traveller. And
Mm.
yeah, and from since then, this is the beginning of the year, and you can say that after 3 or 4 years, Footy Traveller is slowly, starting to make some sense in terms of monetary terms, because I'm getting projects which I never thought I would have got, but I'm thankful that I can keep doing this without having to go back to work a job, which I might have to eventually, but you know, still, I can. I'm happy that I can continue this even if I want to on the side. So yeah, so I think we have a new video coming out for the Calcutta Derby and growth of ultras culture, which I shot recently, speaking to both ultras of both sides. And the video I think should be coming out end of next month or before the ISS season starts or before the Derby. I'm not really sure when. So yeah.
So you have been, I mean, it was one Great thing to just listen to you because I've known you for a while, but
Yeah,
there are details I heard from you today that I did not know, and
okay,
I'm happy that I got to hear all that. But thing is, I wanted to sort of get you into the depths of these little peculiarities that you see, like the rivalry of East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, and the way
yeah,
it plays out in society.
yeah,
It you can compare the scale and the intensity with the ones you see in Indonesia or the ones you see in England, but they
yeah.
are the way the sentiments are expressed are also so very different. What kind of expressions that really stood out to you, because you were used to the rivalries in India, and
Hmm.
you were experiencing rivalries abroad, so what kind of those modes of expression really took you out of your comfort zone and really
I,
surprised you?
I think I first of all I really must thank was born in Calcutta. You know,
Mm,
I credit that part of my life to I don't know who, but like I am really thankful that I was born with the culture where I could understand what rivalry means. You
mm,
know, and not many people are blessed with that opportunity. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be born in Buenos Aires, or you don't need to be born in Zagreb or anywhere else, or in Casablanca to understand what rivalry is. You need to be born where rivalry exists. It can be Amman, for example, to small small clubs who have a big rivalry in Jordan football. So similarly, for me, like in India, for me, that I was very lucky to be able to be born in Calcutta, where I understood growing up what the essence and what the flavor of a rivalry. I'm not saying about East Bengal Bengal rivalry, but I'm talking about what the essence or the flavor of rivalry is. There has been many phases of how this rivalry has panned out, and a lot of it has got to do with economic growth, and a lot of it has to go to do with now has got to do with social media. So in the past, you must understand that why people go to football matches is one, you know, the reason why they go is the primary incentive is not, their passion. The primary incentive is prices. You have to
mm,
understand that prices and income. These two are the two things which drive any sort of consumer behavior, whether they are uh, watching football or whether they are watching anything else. Okay, so prices and income are the two major tenets of any sort of behavior. And in the past, uh, when these rivalries took shape, uh, so what income does is a growth in income gives you an opportunity to experience other stuff which you wouldn't have been able to enjoy otherwise. So this is called a substitution effect of income. Sorry, it's called the income effect. And growth in prices gives you something which you wouldn't have been able to do, which gives you an opportunity to not be able to do what you would have been able to afford at one point of time. So when you look at any football, thing, income and prices have shaped the number of people that come to the stadium. If you look at football in the 70s, the number of people going to the stadium would have been much more than
mm.
the number of people going in the
Yeah.
80s, the number of people going in the 90s, the number of people going in the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, right? The demographics of people who also gone have also changed. Previously, it used to be working class people who had no other source of entertainment because their income was not sufficient for them to be able to afford any other source of entertainment. So they found all the entertainment in football. And by entertainment, I just not mean entertainment of in its truest sense of word, but every other sort of emotion that comes with it. Like for example, crying is also entertainment for somebody. Happiness is also entertainment. Everything is entertainment. It gives you some sort of release. Somebody might be having a bad day at work and everything. They come to football, and because that was the only sense of entertainment back then. As society progressed into a much more economic progressed economically. So in that sense, you had fewer and fewer people, who really thought that, football can be the only source of entertainment that I can have, right? And then
Mm.
people started to have other sources of entertainment, and then, so, and of course, like, you must divide at the same time, you must divide the number of the kind of people who are attached to football also. Like, that also plays a very important role in determining whether other sources of entertainment will have somebody coming to the stadium or not. Hardcore fans, then they have people around the hardcore fans which are on the periphery, which go to maybe about 50% of the home games per season. Then you have some people who go for 10% of the home games per season. Then you have people who go for only one home game a season. So there are different category of fans. So all of these are very interlinked. And standing today in 2020, if you look at Calcutta, you will not be able to see the proportion of people who come to the stadium are still working class people, and not really working class people, who are people who actually come from the suburbs. The more people come from the suburbs is because they have less things to do in the suburbs than in Calcutta. So watching football is a greater incentive for them to come and watch in football than to do anything else. Because in Calcutta, people, if you in main Calcutta, how many people in main Calcutta come to the stadium to watch football? They don't go.
Mm.
They
That's a
have too
bit.
many choices.
It changes. It changes. Like
It's it's
if it's in the
it's too
Maidan, it's a very different crowd.
it,
If it's in
even if
Barasat,
even if
another.
you go even if you go now, I'm talking about a big derby game. In the
Yeah.
Maidan, it's totally price influenced. It's 10
Mm.
rupees. So anybody who
Yeah.
has time can come, right?
Mm.
But I'm talking about somebody who has to shell out 200 rupees or 300 rupees, okay, to watch a match,
Mm.
in the I-League. You know, people in Calcutta in the same income bracket, I'm saying satisfied with keeping the income the same, they can have other sources of entertainment for 200 300 rupees. Why will they come and watch football?
Mm.
Football, is like they have too many choices to choose from. So a lot of these things, the shape of the behavior and the behavioral changes have come with income, price, and all of the offer, like the options they have been offered over time. And that's exactly what happened in the UK. That's exactly what happened in other countries also. In the UK, majority of the people who afford tickets are people who are above the age of 50
Mm.
in the Premier League, or people who have retired, who have time plus savings. Okay. And the other
Mm.
people the young who go, most of the young don't come to the stadium anymore, because they've been priced out of it. And the youth that actually do go are maybe a little more well off than the majority of the youth that is there in the UK. But if you go to Germany, there a huge proportion of the youth come to the stadium because the Germany pricing structure has been kept in mind, considering the fact that for support or fanatical support can only be enjoyed by the youth because they have the energy for it. Like, you can't ask like 50-year-old 1,050-year-olds to form an ultras group and create atmosphere. It's not biologically possible. Yeah, so it depends, and also depends on the policies that the governments have laid out. So, but these are much more evolved footballing societies where football is deeply ingrained in the culture. But as you said, I'm sort of diverting from the topic. When it comes to rivalries, I think like I think it's I'm really grateful that the sort of people that I've grown up with have exposed myself to, the kind of rivalries that I've seen in Indian football, and taking it there to like what I've seen in Indonesia and what I've seen in the rest of the world, it's all very different. The different in the sense is because of the kind of people that come to the stadium, you know, their incomes and so and so. In Indonesia, the people who have come to the stadium are mostly working class, either working class or students. 70% are working class and students, 80%,
Mm.
and they form the majority of the ultras groups. Because one students, like they have the natural inclination to be a part of something which is rebellious, something which is high intensity, something which is involves some sort of identity and debate, amongst peer groups.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you have the working class who feel that this is the only thing that makes them happy.
Mm.
And the reason why rivalries are so ferocious in Indonesia is because of the fact that this is something which I kept looking for. I still don't have the perfect answer for it, but the reason why people are ready to die, in the sense they're not really ready to die, that would be too much to talk, but they know that their life is at risk and they still go to football, is because of the fact that they feel that they have nothing to live for other than this.
Mm.
It just provides them that sort of identity that like I work my job to be able to watch football. I work my job to be able to purchase this jersey. I work my job to be able to you know uh, travel away. So for me, if I it's like an honor to be able to defend their identity, right? So and these are people who come from really not so privileged backgrounds. These are people who are their marginal utility from life, or the marginal value from life is very less, because they feel that this is nothing changes if I die tomorrow. The
Mm.
world does not stop revolving if I die tomorrow. So they feel that ways. So they're, I don't know. I mean, it's still a very debatable and still a very controversial thing to be judging and talking about. But this is what I feel. So, yeah. But if you look at that, you bring that back to Calcutta, this is something which today's uh, crowd or the demographics of East Bengal and Mohun fans don't share, right? Over here, nobody is willing to die for football,
Mm.
and which is a good thing. I mean, it's not something which we shouldn't be proud of. We should be very proud of it. The only difference is that in Indonesia today, this social media hate which is being spewed,
Mm.
which is the major cause of all these incidents of the field. So social media is a major cause of all these deaths which happen on the field, because of the stuff which keeps going on back and forth between club fans, and
Yeah.
is also there at the same level in India. But the only thing, it does not materialize into, on the ground killing, or on the ground, rivalry. But the thing is, like, we don't know. That's something which can happen in the future. We don't know what the effects of psychology, what psychological effects it's having on people. So that's
Mm.
why we keep. I mean, I keep saying that like social media, as much as it helps growing football across the world uh, and spreading the word, it's also very important to be responsible when you're on social media, and how you write, because you cannot see the other person's feelings from the other side, and which today it might be okay, but tomorrow it might just go out of hand, right?
Mm.
So these are certain things which I observe. For example, in the UK, their sort of rivalry is sort of different, in the sense that it's more of a rivalry between the groups
Yeah.
than actually the clubs. So it's more like the ultras groups, they hate each other, even if I'm not saying they're not rivalry between the clubs. Of course, there are rivalries between the clubs, but the hate is actually more between the ultras groups, more between the hooligan groups, and their style of fighting is not like our style of fighting. It's
Yeah.
it's organized, in the
Mm.
sense that, okay, it's 5 versus 5. We meet somewhere, we fight it out. It's not like we slag each other on social media, then we throw stones at each other, which is a problem in India, in Calcutta, and is also there in Indonesia also. Like this culture of throwing stones, like this mob mentality, right? It's also there in Indonesia also. But over there, it's not like that. It's like we fight, okay, we meet, we fight, we finish it there and there, and we leave, and no other
Mm.
part of society is affected in the process, right? But here in Calcutta and in Indonesia and all these places where still got this, we come from a third world society. All of these factors play a very important role in determining the nature of this football hooliganism, because the mob mentality comes in, where the mob behavior, like if you look at a political mob fight, is going to be almost the same as the thing that they use in a political war fight, like a stone, a stick, a brick. So all of these things is what you will see in also in a football fight in Indonesia or in Calcutta
Yeah,
or
it's
any.
it's almost
Yeah,
like everybody is a circumstantial semi-hooligan. If the situation develops around you, you're gonna
yeah,
be sucked into it whether you want it or not.
exactly. And this is the same thing which happens in underdeveloped countries like Egypt,
Yeah,
in Morocco, in Algeria. So definitely, a lot of it is circumstantial because a lot of these people in normal lives are not murderers or
yeah,
not people who would like to pick up a fight if they want to, but a lot of this is because of education, income inequality, and just a lack of things that they don't, you know, lack of options to do other watching football because that's where they use football as a means to express whatever other frustrations they've had uh, in their life, which has been subconsciously affecting them without them realizing it. So,
yeah.
so that's what like I don't know if you know about this guy called Jakarta Casual, Anthony Sutton. It's he says that in his book he writes a lot about Southeast Asian football. He says that throwing a stone is the most cowardly thing you can do because you choose a person who cannot see you. You choose a person who you do not have to confront, and you just throw it and you run away, right? Uh, the same thing is with social media. Fighting on social media is the most cowardly thing you can do because you just
Mhm.
need to take out your keyboard, type something stupid, and leave it there and run away if you want to, or just keep typing that shit without even people knowing who you are and without even facing the consequences of what backlash might be like. And this is how it's intrinsically different in Indonesia. It's intrinsically different in Europe and in other parts of the world. So, but otherwise, if you look at the rivalry, I would say, like for example, if Persib and Persija, uh, uh, in normal life, I think it's just in Indonesia, it's a problem that you cannot use Persija colors in Bandung, even on like a normal day, like even on a non-match day, like you wouldn't wear like a Jakarta jersey in Bandung, which would make you really, really vulnerable because Bandung is like a smaller city compared to Jakarta. It's like a satellite city, and Bandung is crazy about football. But Jakarta is like a metropolitan city, so if you're wearing a Bandung jersey, people are going to look at you in Jakarta, but they won't attack you. But
Mm,
the chances are that in Bandung you might get attacked. Okay,
mm.
if you're wearing a Jakarta jersey. Similarly, things are like that. This is not there in India, and there's a reason why in Calcutta. There's a reason why it is not there. The reason is that society plays a very important role in determining the proximity of the rivalry plays a very important role in determining how society behaves. For
Mhm.
example, Jakarta to Bandung is 2 hours away, right? So you literally don't have to live with each other all the time,
Yeah.
right? But in East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, they live in the same city, they live in the same locality. Imagine every few days there's a fight regarding somebody wearing East Bengal jersey or Mohun Bagan jersey. People, the normal people, I mean, a lot of us forget that there are normal people outside football, you know,
Mm.
and that forms the majority of the population. Normal people outside football, even in like a football crazy country, even if you go to Brazil, there are normal people outside football who forms like a majority of the population. So they, are going to ask you to shut the fuck up and behave.
Yeah.
So that is what exactly happens. And even in Ismail that's and over the years, that is what has kept the rivalry to a very dormant, a beautiful rivalry, you can say, which sort of surfaces, as you say, situationally on match day. And this is exactly the case in the gray areas between Jakarta and Bandung. So if you look at Jakarta and Bandung, there's a area between the 2 hour drive between Jakarta and Bandung has people from both Jakarta and Bandung in those areas. What happens? How do they live their normal lives? So this is the first thing that came to my mind. Like if Jakarta is Jakarta and Bandung is Bandung, then what happens to the people in between? Like does nobody live there, or is it like people murder each other every day? It's like, and the same logic is applied to them. In those gray areas, people have to live with each other,
Mm.
on every other day, because they need to work, they need to earn money, they need to survive. They have families. Even within their families, they might have different supporters. So all of this is actually a construct of society. So what social media, or what a lot of media, portrays, is this black and white aspect of rivalry, which is absolutely wrong. And that is what drives behavior. That's what drives psychology to a point where people actually think that that is what it is. But this rivalry, that's what the responsibility is also a very important role, where you mentioned that on match day, this is the scenario, but all the match days, it's not the scenario.
Yeah.
Because if that is done, then people will stop, and think, okay, so if it's not like this on other than match day, why should I do this on match day anyway? Because I have to deal with it after match day. So, for example, some guy got hit with a stone at the East Bengal game. He had to deal with it after match day also. One guy lost his eye. He had to deal with it for the rest of his life. And the person who threw the stone has to also serve jail even after match day, right? So it's the same thing. So that's where we apply the logic, where we say that rivalries should be rivalries. I understand we've come from a root where there was a reason for this rivalry, where we have a lot of emotions stuck up, and you know things which were not right for a large section of the East Bengal fraternity. And I absolutely understand that. I respect it, and I've been a part of it too. My grandparents have been a part of it too, and I see it from it as well. Like when I'm in the stadium, I literally, I am this, I'm like every other person. Where if somebody calls me a refugee, you know, I would burn from the inside.
Mm.
But we must realize that these are things which we cannot ignore. I
Yeah.
mean, which we cannot overdo. Okay, and these are things which will not change whether we shout about it or not. So the best
Mm.
way to do it is accept it and be proud of it. And I think East Bengal fans, a lot of these Bengal fans are, you know, are doing it this way today, and they're like, refugees. So what? We are refugees. That's how it should be, and we are proud of it. And so this is the way how people deal with it eventually. Yeah, but again, dealing with it and then reacting it to it is a different thing. If you're accepting it, you accept it and you got it out there. It's like, yeah, so what? But then if you accept it and then you throw a stone, then it doesn't change what your ancestors did in the past, right?
Mm.
They're still refugees. By throwing a stone, it doesn't make them not a refugee, right? So this is what thing is, and the same thing with Mohun Bagan. The throw stone, they still don't. It doesn't make them, landowners or something like that. So it's that thing. So you know that education has to go inside that, where you need to draw the line when it comes to rivalries. And a lot of people undermine the effect of social media on rivalries, but it has a very big psychological impact, because everything happens in the mind, right? Your behavior of provoking someone is happening in the mind. Is an outcome of what happened in your mind, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why responsibility is very important. And all over the world, in Indonesia, social media has it's such a pain to control, and people are these rivalries are taking a different turn, I would say, because of social media.
So,
uh,
you it's very interesting the way you talk about this accepting identity and living it through supporting the club, and
mm,
it even becomes a kind of a personal or societal healing
mm,
through that process. So, do you think that this accessibility of the matches, that working class and young people still can access the matches and afford a ticket, this plays a big part in shaping the club's identity and this societal process that happens through the expression of that identity as well? So basically, is it this whole symbiosis of uh, an identity and an ultras group and a club? We are playing this precarious dance of balancing each other and Are we at a stage where difference in ticket prices or something like that might throw it all off, and we might lose the character of our clubs?
That's a very good question in the sense is that the effect of this identity gets eroded with time.
Hmm.
Okay. The thing is, if you go out and ask 50%, not even 50%, even 80 to 90% of the East Bengal refugees or their descendants, for example, even if you ask the parents of the people who speak about being refugees at East Bengal supporters,
Yeah.
who are always like, fuck, he called me a refugee. If you talk to the parents, they don't care. The identity of a refugee has been diluted over time, and this is a natural process, and it will happen. There are some people who want to, uh, from the opposite side, who want to use this to provoke the identity, and some people who get provoked by it, right? But if you take it outside football, if you take to 90% of the people who were refugees, they will definitely say what happened was wrong. What happened
Hmm.
was not, a part is a part of our lives. But
Hmm.
this is something which we cannot afford to continue holding on to because it's sort of limiting in 2020. Like for example, imagine someone saying, "I won't give you a job because you're a Bengal," or "I won't give you a job because of Ghoti." In 2020, does it work? It doesn't work. Or imagine like a shopkeeper saying that, "Okay, I won't give you so and so goods because you're a Ghoti or a Bengal." Like, it doesn't make sense. The nonsense of the rivalry, for example, the fish, things which are harmless, the
Hmm.
fish, or the jokes which come along with it, the style of the cooking, the sweetness in the food or the spiciness in the food, certain behavioral aspects are things which are harmless and which carry on because they preserve that cultural difference.
Yeah.
It preserves the cultural difference because preserving the cultural difference actually gives not only identity to East Bengal refugees or people who were refugees, like children of refugees, but they also give identity to those who are not, because that gives a distinction, of
Yeah.
who, what their lineage was and what their lineage is. And together they give you the distinction of West Bengal being a state which has all kinds of people in it,
Hmm.
with
But
similar but different attitudes. But the thing is that today in 2020, the club cannot rely on the term refugee to grow its supporter base.
yeah.
Even any fan group cannot rely on the terms of refugee to grow the supporter base because 90% of the people do not think like that,
Hmm.
and 99% of the people do not think like that. And if you really have to attract people to the stadium, of course, tickets, ticket prices, depending on, you have to do a proper research on who you're catering to, what their incomes are, and, whatever it is. Ticket prices, most importantly, the way you perform too, which is a very big factor in driving attendances, like I think is the second biggest factor after prices. And thirdly, how you portray yourself as a brand, to the rest of the world. How efficient you are, how open you are, how accepting to society you are, how not aggressive you are. Because aggressiveness only draws aggressive people. If you're aggressive, you will attract more aggressive people. There is no way an aggressive person will attract a calm person. There's no way. And if you look at it, that aggressiveness that came out of refugee identity is barely there anymore. And you cannot use that aggressiveness to draw more people to the stadium. It's not possible. Things have changed. You have to think wisely. You have to think of things which make people focused on promoting and developing the club instead of promoting aggressiveness, which is not only labeling you as someone who wants to promote aggressiveness, but also labels the club as inefficient and you incapable of questioning the right decisions or right things which are uh, good for good for the club. They say that social media is a good way, to aggressiveness increases reach, and which is true. But in the end of the day, like how much of it actually matures to actual attendances at the stadium. So that has to be taken into account. You can say whatever the shit you want, you can make it go viral, you can make it provoking, you can draw attention. But if that does not change the club, if it does not change the number of people attending the club, if it does not change in portraying a better brand name for the club, then what is the point in doing that? It's nothing. So yeah, I mean, I think it should be a mix of everything where people should really look at, treating. That's where I really learned many things from Malaysia, is that they put their club before themselves. Like
Yeah.
they don't have rivalries, they don't have any other sort of. Of course, they are a society. They have many different kinds of people. Rivalries are easy to develop. They have people who are not the similar. They're different states also, and rivalry is not a problem. You can develop rivalries anytime if you want to. Just you need to just throw a stone. They understand what is more important, that they need to change the system because there are bigger problems they need to solve, like a corrupt official, like a corrupt administration, like a inefficient administration which has been pulling back 100 years of football, like Selangor. Selangor is similar like East Bengal because Selangor also have the same, not only the same colors, but they also have a club which was very progressive, which was very successful in the past, but have been pulled down by inefficient administration. So what do Selangor Ultras do? They focus on changing what is good for the club. They do not wait for someone else to come in and change the club or buy the club.
Mm.
They start protesting from day one that why is the color of the bus also not like this? Why are
Mm.
why is the number plate something like that? Small things. So these are the things that you should be protesting on. Changing because all of the design, you know, everything that goes around the club, the design of the club, the design of everything else inside the club. The design, I don't mean art, I mean the design of thinking. Okay, everything has an influence on attracting more people to the stadium.
So we
Right?
are entering this era of transition because East Bengal and Mohun Bagan are in ISL now. So there are new administrations in place for the football teams, and they will be marketing the brands in a very different way. So
Yeah.
I don't really immediately see a demographic change happening at the clubs because Salt Lake Stadium it's going to be an expansion phase because we're going to just have
Mm.
the average attendance increase for the time being, but there
Mm.
will be a time when there is a sanitization effect that happens because they want to raise prices also in the future. They want to get
Yeah.
families in and
Yeah.
project that kind of an image.
Yeah.
So what do you think that spells for these clubs? Just changing
I
the
think
nature of the crowd.
I think the nature of the crowd will change by default. You cannot control it. For
Mm.
example, the nature of the crowd depends a lot on the nature of economic progress and the nature of income progress, right? So if there is economic progress, the clubs will automatically start to brand themselves in a different way, in a much more, if football becomes a sport which is incentivized to invest in, there will be professionalization in the sport. There will be clubs investing in ways which makes the club, a brand.
Yeah.
Okay. And when the club makes a brand of themselves, they will attract people who are already who want to experience that brand. Okay, they will be at a different level of income. What do you say? Like an income at a different earnings level. So, if for
Mm.
example, if East Bengal was at X today and tomorrow they are at Y, which is a higher brand perception level, they will attract people from brand groups, attract the population which is attracted to a Y brand instead of an X brand, right? So that would automatically happen. That sort of attraction will automatically happen. Like it's for example, like okay, let's just take for example like Adidas. Okay,
Mm.
when we were younger, Adidas used to be premium brand,
Yeah.
right? Where we could not afford Adidas, but today Adidas is a mass brand where a lot of
Yeah.
people has can afford Adidas, right?
Mm.
So I mean, I'm talk for East Bengal, for clubs it will be the opposite way, but Adidas over the years have started to appeal to a different economical segment. So the similar thing with East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, the thing is that when you know uh, as time progresses, as there is economic progress, they will start to appeal to a different economical segment. Like for example, football used to be for the working class at one point of time in India and everywhere else in the world. But today, football is for the middle class in India. I wouldn't say upper middle class, but middle class, right? So, from there, you know, if you break up middle class into different parts, there are like many parts to middle class. So I'm not going to say football is going to be an affluent class sport. It will never be an affluent class sport, but it'll start going up the echelons of the middle class ladder. You know what I mean? Like, there are many middle class segments. Like middle class is not just middle class. There are like 50 classes inside middle class. So, and even lower, whatever it is, it'll happen by itself. And the thing is that the beauty of football is that it can never sustain itself by just being a middle class sport. It has to involve all classes. It has to, because that is the beauty of football, and that is how it works all around the world. And if it happens where you include only the middle class, that atmosphere will automatically die with class, with a class and age. I mean, of course, the class difference also comes from age. Like, even if you're middle class, you have to be able to have the money to afford it. And if you have the money to afford it, you cannot. You have to maintain some sort of identity in society, which is not different from middle class. You can't act like a, you know, ruffian and then call yourself middle class outside football. So, so there's a lot of things which go on together, and the thing is that that's how, if you look at stadiums around the world, that's how they eventually end up being shaped into. I'm not talking about worldwide brands like Manchester and Liverpool, where there are only affluent people, because the middle class have been priced out of the stadium. So it's mostly people who are traveling. 70% of the people who are at Manchester are either from outside Manchester, not from Manchester, right? But if you look at countries, for example, like the best example is Mingtong. You know, the thing is that the stadium has four parts, right? You divide the stadium into, if you think of the stadium, you actually divide the stadium into the age and economic uh, affordability. If you look at the actual division within a stadium, right? Behind the goalpost is actually the cheapest ticket, and that's what attracts the cheapest people, cheapest tickets, youth,
Yeah.
right? So more youth will go to behind the stadium, and more working class people will go to behind the stadium, and that's where what defines working class and youth? Ultras groups,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you look at the press boxes and all of that, those are already reserved for affluent class people, right? So that goes there, and the other side will be more for like families or middle class people who are not so crazy, or even working class people, whoever the people who are not as fanatical as the high energy, high intensity youth. So these are, this is how the society divides itself inside a stadium, and that takes place with time. For example, right now in Indonesia, everything is working class, almost
Yeah.
70 to 80%, 90% is working class. It's because the people of the middle class or upper middle class do not find it safe to go to the stadium. This is another variable. Okay, they
Yeah.
don't find it, safe to go to a stadium. They don't feel, they're crazy about football. Everybody in Indonesia loves football, but majority of the classes, other than the working class, they don't find it safe to go to the stadium. They don't find it safe for the children to go to a stadium. So they, stay away, and that's why Indonesia is hugely working class, and they also have a huge. The funny thing about Indonesia is that their EPL fan clubs, like Liverpool, Arsenal, and all of these fan clubs, Barcelona, West Ham, have a huge West Ham fan base, because Indonesia aspires like to be a working class society. So West Ham, automatically West Ham, Millwall, you know, Leeds. These three clubs are very working class. Has always been working class in Indonesia, in English football history, and they appeal so well with Indonesian society. So yeah, so I feel that that's the thing, and but of course there are many variables which come into place. But if eventually, like if you can cut out the safety factor where you think that okay, it's safe to go to a stadium, then there will be a section which will be working class. There will be working class for students, people who can't afford expensive tickets. There will be a middle section where people can afford a certain level of tickets, and we already have that in pricing tier system, right? And there will be a VIP section, and where we will have people who can afford affluent class tickets. So it automatically falls into place, and it's just the thing is with the rise in prices, you have to also note that whether incomes in society also rise. If incomes and prices rise at the same rate, you can say that the demographics will be more or less unchanged. But
Mm.
if the prices increase faster than income, there will be replacement of social classes which inside the stadium. For example, like behind the goalpost might be replaced by middle class people. You know,
Yeah.
so it depends. A lot of these economic factors play a very big role in determining what will happen. And yeah, and I would suggest like I think there needs to be proper study. I think the current pricing system is done one stupid reason that like if you give away tickets for free, it's as bad as I mean selling anything for free is
Yeah.
stupider than selling something for 50 rupees.
Mm.
With 50 rupees you make more money, but with free neither do you convince people to come. Their logic is that you get people to come and experience the stadium, but the thing is that once you inculcate the habit of giving something for free, it always sticks on and people always want it for free. They
Yeah.
will not want to pay for something once they've experienced it for free. So 90% of the people, 99% of the people. So that I think if they spend that money on educating, going to schools and telling people about the football clubs, and like you know spreading more money on influencing people, creating an atmosphere, and making it easy for them to create an atmosphere, then that would have better ROI than giving away free tickets.
But we have seen East Bengal and Mohun Bagan getting some preferential treatment from both FSDL and AIFF and brands as well. That's not because they have a good management. That's not because they have a great brand or marketing or anything like that. It's because of these fanatics who always show up for the club. It's the
Yeah.
ultras mindset is synonymous with the identity of the club, and that's what has sustained them so far, and that's what makes them attractive even at this stage when we have 10 other really good and well established corporate clubs
I
all
think
around the country.
I think first we need to define ultras in this sense. So ultras is not because you have a name ultras. Ultras
Mm,
is a mentality. It is not a way. It is not a lifestyle. It's not what you do in the stadium. It's the way you think. It's the
mm,
way you think that you must come to the stadium. So if you look at it in the technical meaning of the of the term, then ultras existed ever since East Bengal was formed.
yeah.
Right? All the people who came in week out to the stadium every match, spend every time, they are ultras. You know,
Mm,
ultras is not associated with just chants or singing or anything, and that is the reason why East Bengal and Mohun Bagan have a big brand name because they have people coming in day out, and
mm,
this preferential treatment is not because of East Bengal Ultras or Mohun Bagan Marinos base camp or anything else. This preferential treatment is because of the fact that these groups are actually very, very small compared to the actual number of fans who come week in, week out to the stadium,
mm,
right? So, either of these groups are how much? 100, 200 people at the max, right? East Bengal Ultras and Mohun Bagan Marinos base camp, 100, 200
yeah.
people at the max. You think any
Yeah.
brand is going to ever make a decision based on 100, 200 people? They won't.
No, but
So
I was talking about the that mentality itself that we
yeah.
have
So
that
that
base which does not leave the club at any circumstances.
exactly. So that base, and not only that base, there are different levels to that base. So loyalty is like we have a base which is also loyal if they don't come to the stadium. You understand what I mean? So
Yeah.
even if they don't come to the stadium, they're still loyal. So that is the difference. Why we have so much preferential treatment is because we have a brand equity which is not existent in Indian football or even in Asian football, right?
But
So
I wanted to tie that to what you were saying about how society will change, how our identities will change, and the
yeah,
demographics and the um, mentality that the general mentality of the fans who are supporting the club, that will also
yeah,
change. So if
yeah,
with time this ultras mentality it sort of erodes, are we
yeah.
in the danger of losing what makes our clubs special?
It could happen. Like look at Selangor. That is what happened.
Mm, mm,
Selangor plays in front of 1,000 people, and there used to be a massive brand before. So it is important. I think the intervention right now, and Selangor are struggling to bring people back to the stadium. So it is very important now for clubs to, start thinking that, demographics are changing, behavior is changing. If I don't adapt, if I don't start convincing, that's right now, that's what I said, like attracting people by refugee identity is the last thing you should do right now. You should go all out and focus on the team, make it a successful team. Because right now is the time where anybody who is born is available. There was a point of time where we did not have social media and people had few choices, right? And they had less
mm.
exposure and hence less choices, right? So now, people are going to be exposed to so many more things. They not just, for example, if Mohun Bagan is playing well and an East Bengal fan is born in East Bengal family, and he watches East Bengal lose all the time. He doesn't give a shit whether he was born in a refugee family or not, because his parents are not going to tell him after he's born, whisper into his ears that okay, you were born in a refugee family, right? And once his grandparents pass away and he becomes to the next generation, I mean, talking about my generation, when we become fathers, we won't have those. We won't be able to tell the stories the same way my grandparents were able to tell me those stories, right? So, what are the kids going to see? They're going to see which club is successful. Okay, which color do I like? This is something which sticks on forever. You know, there are so many fans who are Mohun Bagan fans because East Bengal fans because but they were Bhotis because of the color they saw. They were attracted to red and gold. Okay, so this then which club is successful? This is just from the Indian football point of view. Then we have the European football point of view, where people are like, okay, Mohun Bagan, they're good, but they're not good enough. I think what I'm watching on TV is much better. Premier League is much better. So why do I waste my time watching Mohun Bagan or East Bengal? So the more the choices you get, the more you tend to pick the better one, because at the end of the day, your time is limited and you have to optimize time to fulfill your utility. So whatever gives you most utility in that period of time is what you choose, right? So that is the problem. So people have to, that we have to evolve from being what your brand identity was. Of course, you preserve your brand identity to a different identity where you are open, where you are, where you say that okay, we are not just we are a successful club in the past, and today also we are going to be a success. We are a big club, and you have to act like a big club. The problem is we were big clubs who acted like small clubs. East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, they were big clubs, acted like small clubs. The
Mm.
supporters acted like supporters of big clubs, right? But the administration acted like
Yeah.
they were admins of small clubs. So this is the problem. So that is where you need a change. And I think even though it's a little late, I think East Bengal and Mohun Bagan should have been in the ISL like 4 years back, along with many other clubs in Indian football like Aroka and Aizawl. You know, uh, the fact that it's like a politician promising that he will do something at the beginning of his political campaign, and then 3 years passes by, and then before the elections, he just does what is right for total getting votes. But anyways, the fact that they do it is eventually the fact that they do it. So now is the right time. They should have now the fact that they are in the system where they're not the only stakeholders. There are other people to answer to, and it's sometimes a little bit of authoritarianism is good, because that otherwise you're just free to procrastinate. To be honest, is the word. You're just free to procrastinate without thinking much about what this means to a million other people. So in a way, it's good, and yeah, and but you know yeah, I mean, I hope that this takes a new chapter in Indian football.
Alright, make sure you follow him on Instagram and Twitter, on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. Just look for the Footy Traveller everywhere, you can't miss him. Thanks for watching or listening. I know every other day we get messages asking for the podcast to become a bit more regular, and I keep promising that we're gonna do it. Hopefully, with the ISL and I-League seasons approaching, we're gonna be able to pull this off. Kevin is gonna come back soon, and we'll be launching straight into previewing the teams and the competitions. So stay tuned, we're coming back soon.